Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Yeah. My name is Mary Ann McGowan, and as president of this congregation, I welcome you to a very special event in the life of First Parish in Needham and of this town. It is wonderful that so many of you have joined us today as we take our first public steps on the road to reparations for the harm done to African and indigenous people by the spiritual ancestors of this church and the 18th century European colonists of Needham. Many of the enslavers' names still mark Needham's modern geography, as much as the legacy of enslavement and land theft still harms descendant families and communities of those enslaved. Today, we will dedicate a memorial to those who were enslaved in Needham in the 1700s, and therefore were part of this church community. Our work on this memorial grew out of our commitment to our Unitarian Universalist values that call on us to search for truth and meaning, and when needed, to make apology and repair. The American history of enslavement is also the history of First Parish, as well as the town. Our first minister, Reverend Jonathan Townsend, whose name you'll see up there, enslaved a man we know only as Homer. Homer did some of the work of sexton of the church, with his wages given to Townsend, and his unpaid labor helped make this congregation possible. The story of our coming to grips with our connection to slavery really begins with our discovery of Homer. A great deal of research went into the creation of our memorial. For that, we especially thank Dr. Gloria Grice, who worked with Reverend Katie Scudera to uncover the history of enslavement here in Needham. We also were very fortunate to have support and guidance from Darlene Trogue, a descendant of two of the enslaved people, Jupiter and Ishmael Coffey. In the course of her geological research into her ancestors, Darlene found First Parish through Reverend Katie's sermons about enslavement that were published online. We offer our thanks to the Needham Channel and to Darlene for working together to create the videos of her family's history that will debut during the ceremony. And the beautiful design of the memorial, which you will see at the end of this ceremony, was created in close collaboration with Darlene and brought to life by Josephine Calzada, a member of our senior youth group and a student at Needham High School. We are so proud of Jo and honored that First Parish is her spiritual home. Today, as we remember and honor the 15 people who we know were enslaved by residents of this town, and therefore members of this parish, as well as the unknown number of those enslaved whose names we do not know. Remembrance is an important part of justice and repair, but only a first step. We also will offer a formal apology and take a collection to fund scholarships for students from communities that were harmed by the legacy of enslavement and displacement from the land, and to fund future reparative projects at First Parish and in the town. In the words of our memorial plaque, our Unitarian Universalist values call on us to acknowledge First Parish in Needham and the town's enslavement history and make apology and repair. We honor and remember the lives of those who were enslaved in Needham, those whose names we know, and those whose names have been lost to history. All of their lives matter. Now I would like to call forward Chief Peter Silva Arrow, trustee of Hassanamisco Nipmuc people and a descendant of two of those enslaved, Jupiter and Ishmael Coffey. Chief Peter will offer an opening ritual to honor the directions and the vernal equinox.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Glad to be here. It's very dangerous when you pick a microphone and place it in front of people to speak. So I don't have a watch. I observed a past minister take off his watch and put it on a podium. Everyone thought that he would be keeping everything very short and brief, and he said, "This has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm going to say. It just was tight on my wrist, so I took it off." I did take notes to try to qualify myself and restrict my time. So I'm here to just briefly introduce you to the fact that everything that I've heard today, as I shared with Reverend Kathy just a few minutes ago, it's like a coming together of water and streams and the weaving of our people. The messages delivered to you today came in one language, in one way, but it was the same language that I'm about to, same message, but in a different language that I'm about to share with you. Today represents, within the last several days, represents the end of the winter solstice. The winter solstice to us was the represented long nights of cold and hopes for the return of the great sun to our lands. To our Nipmuc people, that these were our homelands. To our Nipmuc people, this time was classified as dream time. It was storytelling time. It was a time to talk about where we are, how we are related to all things, and all things are related to us, and we are a part of all things. It was time to honor the Creator and all the mysteries that the Creator has provided to us, those things that we understand, those things that we could only see and try to understand and share with the next generations to come, of those things to be protected. To honor the ancestors that came before us and the contributions that they've made and sacrifices that they made so that we could be here and share with you today, 10,000 years later, those things that were learned, understood, and how we can work together to bring forward the thoughts and dreams and the guidelines that the great provider has given to us in all things that are around us. The ability to understand the balance of life, and we are all a part of everything around us. To learn and understand the seasons of the great Creator, the 4 seasons, and how to survive in those 4 seasons. I will share with you one thing that was taken away very, very early, and I'd like to share with you, and I'll just speak those words. It's stopping me from saying them. I'll come back to that because it's not the time for those words to be shared with you. Let me just share with you one item of make sure that we are all on the same wavelength. And I chose an insect that is very, very annoying to us all, and that's the mosquito. We learned, and I hope that you can appreciate the fact that the mosquito had a purpose, and it was our responsibility to, even though very, very annoying, that mosquito had a place, had an importance, and was created by the Creator for us to protect. Although annoying, we should protect that mosquito, understand that mosquito's purpose in life, and our responsibility to ensure that mosquito's well-being, as well as the environment that mosquito's in. And that was our message that we picked up during this time of the winter solstice, dream time. Our ancestors talked about the mosquitoes, talked about our responsibility to that mosquito and the environment that mosquito lived in. And it's our responsibility to ensure that mosquito and that environment survives so that in the next 7 generations, our grandchildren would be annoyed by the mosquito. They would be not only annoyed by the mosquito, but blessed in seeing the streams and rivers that mosquito lived in, be able to fish the way that our ancestors for the last 10,000 years had fished, and find a joy in the wonderful gift of the Creator. Those lessons of the winter solstice, dream time, story time, that's what that was all about. The transfer of information from one generation to another generation. John earlier talked about Nokomis, and that was a part of storytelling time. You saw the strawberry. The strawberry suggested to us the next step. Where we are right now, our story time has ended. Our dream time has ended. And now we are in the summer equinox. We call it sequin. Sequin brought us to a point of remembering the storytelling and the dreams, our ancestors, our relationship to the Creator, and our purpose in life that was told to us in dream time. And now in sequin, it's our responsibility to internalize that message, to find out where we are and the contributions we make as individuals as well as the community to the well-being of all things, to carry forward the blessings of the Creator in so many ways. It was a time of renewal of self, a time of renewal of community, a time of a new being, a time of spiritual awakening in each of us. Oh, we heard that in today's messages. And it's the same. I don't know how and why it unwove, but it's the same message, and the same message that I've heard today. For us, we call it the time of the crow. The crow represents, I won't get into this legend, but the crow represents the gift of corn to us. The time of the worm. And earlier, a couple of days ago, I saw my first worm. The worm represents the warming of the earth, the turning of the earth, the opening of the earth. This was sequent rebirth. It's the time the maple syrup ran. And some called it the sugar moon. And this told us the earth was changing and adapting. And it is time for us to change and adapt. What this meant to us as individuals, the year before, we had lessons that we learned, and we completed those life lessons. And now with the sequence, the rebirth, we took on new roles and responsibilities. Maybe, as I saw with my nieces and nephews over the last couple of days, one not being able to understand new birth, and a younger sister, this year understanding that it's my responsibility to make sure that she's protected. And you could see that learning taking place. As we go into adolescence and adulthood, we learned of new lessons of our responsibilities and how those responsibilities to life, the well-being of the community, dreams for the next 7 generations change with each new rebirth. And eventually, when you get to my age, now you start to talk and think about the next 7 generations. I will not be here for too many more winters. And the question is, what do I do to ensure the well-being for the next 7 generations? So I welcome you today to Sequin. I welcome you, and I hope that you open your hearts and listen to your inner spirit. What I saw today, I said, you use the bell, you use the drum, and you use voices to reach to that inner spirit. And you can feel with the bell and your piano how it touches your skin and moves to your spirit inside. We use the drum to do that. And if you come to a tribal community, or maybe somewhere in the future we can have a tribal event here, and in place of your bell, you can hear the 10,000-year-old drum reach softly through your skin and enter your heart and enter that inner spirit and calls to that inner spirit for you to find the message that's in there. And we each have it. We each have it. We may deny it. We may hide it, but it's hidden in there. And the bell, the piano here, the song, helps to soften everything inside so that inner message can start to come to the surface. We use the drum to do that and ceremony to do that. We'll be using some of that ceremony today to allow the inner message that you have to come out, and we'll show you a way that we have, that you transfer that inner message to an item. In this case, it will be tobacco, the sweet message to the Creator and to all things. That message will be transferred to the tobacco, enter the fire, and to be released in fire. And that fire will turn the tobacco to smoke, diffuse to all things, diffuse to Creator. And your message, that hidden message that you have that you do not have to share with anybody, but you are sharing now with all things around in the Creator. This is my hopes and dreams. This is my responsibility to the well-being of all things for the next 7 generations. And I don't know what that message and your responsibility is, but your inner spirit knows. Creator somehow put it inside of each of us. And although we're confused, and although that responsibility that you have may be secondary, when we put it together as community, it all means something. And without your contribution, that message is somehow hurt and reduced. I'll come back later on to talk about the message and how we will all have the opportunity to share and see a tribal way of sharing that message with the Creator and all things around us. I just want to close by saying, please understand that we have a tendency of thinking ourselves as being somehow superior to all things and not a part of all things. That is not the case. Creator has created us in a way of that we are interrelated with all things around us. And it's our responsibility for us, for the last 10,000 years, to ensure that all things are taken care of, and that they are there for the next 7 generations. One of the reasons why I'm here today is, will you join us? Will you join us in that process? Will you join us in figuring out a way that we can find a new path to walk together so that our voices can become one, that the unwoven can be woven again, that the waters that have separated us will be waters that again join us together? And now Creator has allowed me to say, Katbalash, to thank you from my heart for this, to say, Katakakwa, to say, good afternoon. And I'll leave it to the next person on the agenda. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Oh.
I would like to just briefly share that Peter is the oldest living descendant of Ishmael Coffey and his father Jupiter. And if we are able to practice modern technology, before you leave today, we're going, oh, they're on the screen. Technology works. That is the youngest descendant of Jupiter and Ishmael Coffey, Vivian. I'm sorry. If you happen to have the honor of being at the sermon this morning, a piece was read, written by Robin Wall Kimmerer, about Nokomis, grandmother, and strawberries being taught to the grandchild, and the importance of the earth and what the earth has to offer us if we listen. So with Peter being the oldest living descendant and Vivian being the youngest, it's an opportunity for us all to think forward 7 generations. And I'd like to share with you as well today, because most people, well, we do have genealogists here today, yay, a love of history. Peter and I are 7th generation from slavery. This is a rare time not only for the congregation and the people that joined today to hear our story, but we have an opportunity. And so I just want to make sure that you got to see. And Reverend Katie, you did ask about the youngest member of the family. She's not able to be here in the flesh, but we were able, through technology, for you to see how we have an opportunity to carry on what the legacy has been that has brought Peter and I to this 7th generation, but going forth, not one generation to my daughter, but the next generation to my granddaughter, and beyond, to 7 generations. That is how long we believe repair will take. 7 generations at least. So it is a long journey, and thank you for being here. I wasn't supposed to speak, but thank you so much for beginning this journey with us. I had to stand up and speak before you, and I thank you for witnessing this time. And I interrupted Peter, so he didn't get an opportunity to explain the bundle. So did you want to explain the bundle before we move on?
The bundle that we will be offering to All Things later on at the end of this event will be really a bundle that takes into consideration cedar and tobacco and the color red that represents the spirit of life to us. It will be offered as the opening of spring. There is a second small bundle, a second leaf, that will also be offered. Let me just explain to you our strengths as a people. We have two major strengths that are not often shared. I'll share it with you today. The first strength is the mystery of the Creator and the wonders of the Creator, and how understanding that and sharing those mysteries gives us strength as individuals. The second strength that we have are our women. You can look to me as a great and powerful warrior, but I will tell you that our strength is indeed our women. They can say and do things that we cannot. They have so many ways to speak to all things around us that we as men do not have. A pathway was opened by this church and Sister Kathy. And as we walk the path that we'll be walking early, and I hope that each of you walk the path with us, that I'll be walking with Sister Kathy. And I'll ask her to make the first sacrifice, because through her research and through Darlene's research, you made this event happen. The recognition of the history. We can't unchange history. It's there. But we certainly can take a look at the next generations and the next 7 generations and how we can make a difference. This offering to everything around us will start that process. So thank you very, very much.
We're off script.
Thank you, Chief Silva, and thank you, Darlene, for your very moving and inspiring, for moving us, and inspiring us. As is our congregation's practice, we now light our chalice, symbol of the Unitarian Universalist faith, and we light it in memory of those whose forced labor built this congregation and this town, and whose humanity was denied, and whose lives mattered then and matter still. Please join together in saying the words in your orders of service and on screen from UU Minister Reverend Chris Jimerson. This is the flame we hold in our hearts as we strive for justice for everyone. This is the light we shine upon systems of oppression until they are no more. This is the warmth that we share with one another as our struggle continues. please now join me in speaking First Parish's acknowledgement of our land theft and enslavement history, as in your orders of service and on screen. We remember that we are gathered today on the occupied territory of the Massachusetts and Pawtucket people who have stewarded this land for generations, and that our early church financially benefited from our minister and members enslaving African adults and children. I now invite forward members of the Needham Select Board, Chair Heidi Frail, Vice Chair Kathy Dowd, and Kevin Keene, to share their greetings and gratitudes.
Hello. We wanted to share our warmest greetings to Chief Peter Silver Arrow and to Darlene Trogue. Thank you for making the effort to travel all the way here for this ceremony to honor your ancestors, the Coffeys. We are so honored that you are here to mark this solemn occasion of great importance to our community. Thank you also to Reverend Katie Scudera and to Gloria Grice, the director of the Needham History Center, for doing this really meaningful research to help us come to grips with a very difficult chapter in our history. The significant involvement of Needham with enslavement was hidden before you undertook this research, and uncovering this history was difficult and time-consuming. We are grateful to you for your efforts. You have changed how we view ourselves and how we teach the history of Needham in our schools. This memorial will help us to not forget again. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. I invite you all now to join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation as we center ourselves on this precious present moment, mourning the congregation's and the town's history of harm and that harm's ongoing impact, as well as dreaming of a future we could plant and grow together for the betterment of the next 7 generations. As you help your bodies and spirits become calm, perhaps by breathing deeply in and out, I invite you to hear these words excerpted and adapted from UU ministers, Reverend Margaret Bowens-Wheatley and Reverend Clyde Grubbs. Spirit of life and love, the divine we know by many names and through many ways. The road of history is long, full of both hope and disappointment. In times past, there have been wars and rumors of wars, violence and exploitation, hunger and homelessness, the destruction of this earth, your creation. In times present, we find similar tragedies repeating. We have become a global village with a growing realization of how fragile this earth is and how interconnected we are to each other and to all creation. We cannot continue to live in the old way. We must make a change, seed a new way, a way toward peace with love and justice and a healthy planet. O great creative spirit, you have given a vision of the good, and we yearn for that new way. But where are we to find the courage to begin this work? We know that a different tomorrow is possible, but how do we build it? And so we think of the prophets, scriptural and secular, who voiced unpopular opinions and truths, who made personal sacrifices, and who sometimes lost their lives for the sake of justice. In the silence of each of our own hearts, we recall those prophets and teachers who have impacted our lives and guided our ways of thinking and acting. May they, especially those who are ancestors, be present with us today as a great cloud of witnesses to a new way of life. the way of peace, love, and justice, the way of justice lived according to the ways of peace and love, the beloved community. May our guides, our ancestors, support us on this journey toward healing and repair, personally and communally.
Hello, my name is Darlene Troge, and I am a descendant of Jupiter and Ishmael Coffey. I grew up on an Indian reservation on Long Island called Shinnecock, which is my mother's tribe. My father is a Nipmunk from the Hassanamisco tribe in Grafton, Massachusetts. As a child, I was always told a story by my father, who was a captain in the United States Army during World War II. And he always told us of the story of our family having a warrior in every single war fighting for this country. And I learned about one of his great-great-grandfathers that fought in the Revolutionary War. And of course, this was all oral tradition. And he was always very proud to tell us that our family fought for this country. And there weren't too many people that were interested in his story outside of our family. So I decided to honor that oral tradition during COVID. When I was on furlough, on extended furlough, like so many people, I decided to take a deep dive into the Revolutionary War warrior that he always told us about. And that's how I learned more about Ishmael, by finding his military record in Massachusetts that even referred to his height. He was 5'7". He had dark hair and brown skin, and he fought at Bunker Hill. I decided that I wanted his story recognized because few people welcomed the story of an Indigenous or African American patriot. I wanted people to hear his name, and I wanted people to understand not only the contribution of Ishmael as an individual, but our family, and by extension, people of color, to the fight for independence for this country. So I took my research to the Daughters of the American Revolution, who have a very high standard in terms of genealogy and requirements in order to have a patriot recognized. So through an extensive research where they assisted me, I was able to document Ishmael's service, and they recognized him as a patriot with their extensive records. I was invited into membership of Daughters of the American Revolution. During that research is when I found Needham UU. Reverend Katie had posted a sermon that she shared where she mentioned the names of those that were enslaved in Needham. Ishmael was born into slavery. His father, Jupiter, was enslaved. So that's how I connected to the church at Needham during that very important time when my patriot was recognized for the first time, and Needham was already hearing the story of patriots of color. So we came together, and I learned the values
of UU and was astounded with how those values aligned with the way I was raised.
I'm shorter. Hello, everybody. I am Gloria Grice. I'm the Executive Director of the Needham History Center and Museum. And thank you all so much for joining us on this very special and important occasion for our community. Before I start, I want to express my thanks to members of the First Parish Memorial and Reparations Committee, who have been really doing all of the hard work and pursuing this goal for several years now, and to Josephine Calzada, who distilled this work into visual form. And when I see Josephine's powerful work, I'm going to see three things. I'm going to see tragedy. I'm going to see lives and bodies that were used without reference to their humanity. Much of the information that we currently have about enslaved people in Needham comes from this parish's birth and death records, and are primarily records about babies. Babies like Vivian. Babies who were born to be livestock and not children. Babies whose only future horizon was labor for somebody else's benefit and use. We have scant records of the parents who bore these children, though we know that they were here as well. It is true that the model of enslavement in places like Needham was probably easier than the brutal toil of the sugar plantations and cotton fields. But that doesn't matter. Enslavement is never not brutality, and it is never not violence. However good the working or living conditions may have been. And I will see complacency. We live in the North. We were not enslavers, the South was. We fought a war about that in 1865. We gloss over the history that reminds us that enslavement was common in the North in 1765 and in 1665. We don't make the connection that Massachusetts' great maritime wealth in the 18th and 19th centuries was anchored by the Middle Passage. Maybe we were never even taught to make that connection. When the Reverend Katie and I first started to present this research, people were offended. They pushed back. They said that we were troublemakers and trying to manufacture conflict. Thankfully, we have the evidence in the Reverend Jonathan Townsend's own handwriting to show them otherwise and to keep this conversation going. But I can be complacent, right? I'm not involved. My grandfathers came here from Italy in the 1920s, decades after the emancipation. All of us were born decades after the emancipation. We live in the most progressive state in the country. We support this progress with our votes and taxes. And that is all true. And that is all good. But it does not mean that our job is done. Even in Massachusetts, as throughout the country, the legacy of enslavement and the long years of discrimination that followed still have repercussions for employment, education, and generational success. Inequities that have benefited us, opportunities that have not yet been resolved for others. But I will also see resilience. Another myth of the North is that we freed the slaves. Our abolitionists went to war, promoted legislation, offered our homes as shelter. Needham was deeply involved. We elected anti-slavery legislators. We sent so many men to the Union Army that we did not need to be subject to the draft. We voted to denounce and disobey the fugitive slave law. And this is all true also, and also to our credit. But this self-congratulation denies the agency of the enslaved themselves. Quock Walker and Elizabeth Freeman, who forced the Massachusetts courts to reckon with the lofty words of the state's constitution. Nat Turner, who was no longer content to wait for someone else to act. Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Frederick Douglass, who lived between cultures to lead the enslaved to freedom in the South and advocate for legal remedies in the North. For the family of Ishmael and Jupiter Coffey, who made for themselves new lives after freedom. And for the many, many whose names we will never know, who created networks of pathways and safe houses that led themselves and others to freedom. Of the people who never gave up hope, who faced all risks to live a life of freedom, family, and community. So that is the inspiration that I want to take away from this dedication today. The triumph of resilience over tragedy and of action over complacency. This memorial reminds us we can't change our history, but we can make a better future for ourselves and for the next 7 generations. Thank you.
Everyone was told they could also come up here, but there are stairs. If it's not like. Thank you so much to all of you, especially Gloria and Darlene, for these historical reflections to share with us. It's been an honor and privilege for me and for First Parish to work with Darlene and Gloria these past few years. And before we move into our naming ritual, formal apology, and then our procession and our blessings, our unveilings, I wanted to briefly share about the dream of a Needham memory trail and the community memorial group that is working toward it. Those involved at First Parish and in the wider community in historic research and actions of repair understand that this memorial installation is a beginning. The memorial group, of which Darlene and Gloria, Kevin Keene from the Select Board, and myself are all a part, intends to collaborate, educate, and dialogue with our community as we all engage in the history of enslavement and the legacy of slavery in Needham, as well as the taking of lands and participation in the prejudicial and genocidal activity toward Black and Indigenous peoples in Needham and in this region. Inspired by the Black Heritage Trails in Boston and in New Hampshire, we advocate for a Needham memory trail with public markers and monuments that honor Needham's Native and African history. In addition to the memory trail, we support the adoption of the new Needham Town Seal going before town meeting this May, and we advocate for the Needham Public Schools social study curricula to incorporate accurate and age-appropriate information about this part of the town's history of African enslavement and Indigenous displacement. A Needham memory trail would include the indoor memorial here that we'll soon unveil, and already established sites like the Richard Fry plaque at Avery Field, at Townsend Green, and at certain historic homes. And we dream of a memory trail that could also include certain local parks with reclaimed historic Indigenous names, a plaque dedicated to Revolutionary War service members of color, memorial markers or monuments to enslaved Needhamites at places like Needham Cemetery and the Town Common, and an outdoor sculpture of bronze and stained glass on First Parish's front lawn, honoring both the suffering and the resiliency of both Indigenous and African communities here in Needham and in the United States, a project already in process in collaboration with an artist from the Praying Indians of Natick and Ponkapog. And so I am grateful and humbled by all who have taken the time to participate in this special ceremony today, and especially to those who shepherded this particular memorial into existence. And I hope that all here will support future work to ensure that these parts of Needham's history are never buried or forgotten again. Ooh, spooky. That door is essential to our air circulation system, so we're going to open it back up again. It's jerry-rigged. This is a very old sanctuary. Very effective, but definitely jerry-rigged. Now let's take a moment of solemn remembrance of those who were enslaved in Needham by the earliest colonists of our town. Our congregational president, Mary Ann McGowan, our Community and Relationship Committee member, Vicki McCready's, and I will speak the names we know of who were enslaved, and we also invite Darlene Troge and Chief Peter Silva Arrow to come forward to speak the names specifically of their ancestors. All present, whether here in the building or participating on YouTube, all present are invited to join in the spirit of prayer and remembrance by responding to each name with the phrase, "Rest in power." Let us begin.
Boston,
Rest in power. Homer.
Ishmael.
Jack,
Jenny,
Jethro.
Jupiter.
Rest in power.
Phoebe,
Phoebe,
Primus.
rest in power,
Prince,
rest in power. Rose,
Sylvia.
Terrence,
rest in power. Violet,
May all these beloved souls and all those whose names are not yet known rest in peace and rest in power. All of them matter. Amen. We now invite forward the ministers of UU Wellesley to join us on the chancel. This is Reverend Mark Roble and ministerial intern Terry Dixon. They'll join me and Marianne in issuing a formal apology on behalf of Needham and of West Needham, now known as Wellesley. It's fine, it's nice they're here. The football game was months ago. Okay. We also bring greetings and sincere regrets from the ministers of Wellesley Village Church, United Church of Christ, formerly the West Needham Parish, who could not be here in body but are here with us in spirit. And I believe a couple of the lay members from Wellesley Village Church were able to attend today. Thank you so much for being here. At the 2007 Annual Assembly of Unitarian Universalists, former National Unitarian Universalist Association President Reverend Bill Sinkford offered a formal ceremonial apology to the Ute tribe, to whom the American Unitarian Association had been assigned by the government of the United States in the 1800s. Reverend Sinkford said, "Reconciliation is not something that happens at one moment in time. It is not something you can cross off your to-do list. Reconciliation begins with truth-telling, with knowing and telling stories. Reconciliation begins with confession and contrition. The oppressor, the one who has done violence, needs to say, 'I'm sorry. I understand now that I or we were wrong and harmed you.' And the apology has to be heartfelt. Reconciliation is about relationship. It is about offering reparation for the harm done where that is possible. Repair and reparation stem from the same linguistic root, and it is about the former oppressor, the person or group that has done harm, partnering with and supporting the survivors of oppression as the survivors empower themselves and chart their own course." And so I invite all who are on the chancel to speak these words of apology with me, offered both to our honored guests, Chief Peter Silva Arrow and Darlene Troge, and also to all those whose families and descendants who are yet unknown to us, but who were harmed by enslaver Needhamites and first parishioners, this apology is for you. We, those who have inherited the towns and congregations of Needham colonizers and enslavers, offer the descendants of those displaced and enslaved our heartfelt apology. Our predecessors and spiritual ancestors participated in a process that dehumanized your ancestors, stealing their freedom, forbidding their potential for education and wealth, and denying their dignity and self-determination. We apologize that the legacy of enslavement and ongoing structural racist discrimination has continued to cause intergenerational harm to the emotional and economic well-being of your families. We ask for your forgiveness. We are honored to be invited to travel the path of healing and reparations with you. We offer our humble intention to develop individual and communal relationships with you that are equitable, transformative, and loving. We promise our solidarity as you chart your way forward with the prayer for just relationships in the generations that follow us. And again, we are sorry. Thank you all so much. Colonization and enslavement are actions of stolen resources and wealth with ongoing intergenerational economic impacts. For me, this is most personal because, like Gloria, my paternal grandfather came to the United States from Sicily in the early 1900s. That side of the family is entirely Italian. And my father, also named Peter, and his younger siblings grew up just a few miles from Peter and Darlene on Long Island. But my grandfather was able to access funding and support from the GI Bill that your father was not able to. And that is the case for many veterans of color. My family was able to be brought out of the poverty they experienced in Sicily. They came by their own choice to the United States to start a new life. And while they did face racial and religious discrimination as Italian Catholics, the scale of it is absolutely small in comparison to the 7 generations of your family since the time of enslavement here in Massachusetts. And so I remember that though my ancestors may have come to Europe from Europe after the time of enslavement and land theft, my family still benefited from the system of white supremacy in the United States that allowed them to accumulate wealth, to find their education. My father and both his siblings went to college, went to graduate school, and that was enabled by the policies of the United States that did not allow your grandparents to do that. And in recognition of this reality, and perhaps others here have personal stories that you can relate with this, for me, the geography is quite profound. In recognition of this reality, all are welcome today to contribute to a collection for a communal reparative financial gift. Donations received this afternoon will be combined with donations given at this morning's Sunday service. Half of our reparative collection will be given to the scholarship fund of Jack and Jill of America Incorporated's Newton chapter. This national organization of Black mothers and their children is dedicated to nurturing future African American leaders, and we're very glad. You've now been supplanted as president, right? You're a regular. Are you still president? You're still president. LaToya, the president of this chapter, is here with us today. Thank you for being here. They've been holding their regular meetings at First Parish since 2022. And we're very honored by your presence and glad that we can give back to you in this way. And the other half of our collection will be saved at First Parish for future programs and projects that offer acknowledgement and restitution for our colonial history of African enslavement and of indigenous displacement. Our indoor memorial is but the first reparative action of its kind. We plan for funds donated today to be the seed money to grow something new, the foundation of an envisioned path forward to offer genealogical research support and financial restitution for descendants of those who were enslaved in Needham. So I hope that you will give generously this afternoon to our reparations fund to support the amazing work of Jack and Jill Incorporated and to the future work of First Parish and the town that we will collectively do toward healing and repair. To donate to today's collection, you can use First Parish's Text to Give program by texting, and this should be in your orders of service, UU Needham reparations and a $sign and an amount, to the number 73256. You can donate to the reparations fund through the donate dropdown of our website, uuneedham.org, and you can drop a check or cash into the collection plate or mail a check to First Parish with reparations fund in the memo line. And in case you are headed to our website, please also know that First Parish now has a landing page, so to speak, for a summary of our historic research and narrative biographies of all those who were enslaved in Needham, whose names we know and those who we don't. You can access that directly at uuneedham.info/land enslavement with L and E capitalized. That's a little bit.ly for those of you who are in the know on the internet. Thank you all so much for everything you can do to help support and sustain this congregation and the town's ongoing work for healing and for justice. May the ushers please come forward.
Hello. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Josephine Calzada, and I am a member of the senior youth group here at First Parish and have been working on this memorial for 2 years now. I'm saddened by the fact that I cannot be there in person today. However, I am still honored by the opportunity to share a quick statement that I have written with you all. I was first approached in the summer of 2024 about a visual memorial to Homer and other individuals enslaved in Needham during the 18th century. The Community and Relationship Committee hoped to bring in artistic input from me, as well as other first parishioner and artist, Mr. David Menard, to create a visually compelling memorial that acknowledges our history with enslavement, while also supporting a commitment to counter racism and oppression as we strengthen our community. Before the two of us were brought in, the work was designed as a traditional gravestone marker, featuring common Eurocentric motifs such as the dove. It was quickly realized that this more somber and conventional depiction was not the intent for this project. This piece is as much about redemption, growth, and a celebration of life as it is about memorializing and acknowledging the atrocities committed in our past. In an effort to move away from Eurocentric thinking, we chose to omit direct depictions of the church or specific individuals such as Homer, and instead focus on the message we wanted the work to convey. What did we as a church community feel was important to say? Whose history do we want to highlight, and how? An idea originally brought up by our artistic collaborator Darlene Troge, who is a direct descendant of Jupiter and Private Ishmael Coffey, was to incorporate our shared UU values of interdependence, pluralism, justice, transformation, generosity, and equity, built upon a foundation of love. In this way, the artwork could also help us reflect on what we, as a Unitarian Universalist community, feel is our responsibility to repairing past harms and to one another in the present. The final work itself depicts two hands cradling a flower. Flowers are universal symbols of growth, hope, and renewal. They represent our commitment to life, nourishment, and continued growth in response to our history. Each petal includes one value, written in small text so as not to take away from the focus of the piece, which is the names and statement on those enslaved throughout Needham's history. At the center of the flower, the word love appears, a nod to its role as a foundation for all the other values and a reminder that any real attempt at repair must begin from a place of unconditional love. The flower appears to glow, casting light onto the hands holding it. This reflects how love and shared values can illuminate both our past and the path forward. The hands were chosen as a way to represent people without relying on literal or facial depiction. Given that there is no remaining documentation to what any enslaved individuals look like, we determined that any depiction could be insensitive and contradictory to the message we hope to convey. By leaving all representation more general, we acknowledge the existence of other enslaved human beings who we may never hold record of. This choice also blurs the lines between past and present, as the origin of the hands are left up to the viewer's interpretation. The two hands are also two different skin tones, acknowledging the fundamental role that race plays in both the history of enslavement and in our ongoing work towards a more just world. The two hands meet at the center, cupping the flower together, representing how only through shared community effort, commitment, and communication can we begin to honor the past and work towards repair. I have been honored to bring this project to life. Too often history is ignored, shunned, or forgotten. I hope that this project makes you reflect on the shocking history of our church and acknowledge the hardship of those who are often just a small note in a large ledger. Thank you.
Again, we're so proud of Josephine. No. We're going to have a little bit of movement before the rain really gets started.
Thank you. I'll be leading the procession. For the next activity. I'll ask everyone to follow by line, so when this comes to an end for the next, to follow to the back. Kraus, who has been selected as a firekeeper, has kept the fire outside, up and moving, and calling to the spirits that something's coming, a message is coming. That message is going to be coming from your inner spirit, your heart. I've asked you to consider those things that you've heard and listen to your inner spirit. Transfer that message, whatever that message is, no matter how small, insignificant, or important that message it is. It's like water. A drop of water of rain may mean nothing as it splashes against you, but together it means so much. Your messages will be gathered and dispersed to all things, to the Creator, and will find its rightful place in the fabric that will hopefully bring us together, to allow us to start to understand where we need to go in order to provide a future for our next 7 generations, to allow my nieces and nephews and grandchildren, I'll be lucky enough to see the opportunity to dream. We all have that opportunity. That opportunity will be seen in our native children, but will also be seen in your children as well. And as Martin Luther King said, we can walk hand in hand together and fulfill the dream and opportunities for our combined next 7 generations. So what we'll do is I'll start the procession. We'll walk out. All of us will have the opportunity to offer tobacco. This tobacco will be Massachusetts tobacco. This will be coming from a Massachusetts basket made of pine needles. These are a part of our traditions. This is a part of our past for 10,000 years. This is a part of your past that you may not have recognized and have valued in the past. I can say, which is a welcome I couldn't say to you before until after I heard and saw the feelings and good spirits that have been brought forward today. Let me go on with the script, make sure that you understand that the procession will go outside. Those of you that will not be outside to see the actual offerings of cedar, of tobacco, of Mother Earth and the water, and our message to the Creator in all things, you'll be able to see it on the screen on the inside. But you'll have the opportunity to make your blessing. We will continue the line around, and we will go to the offering and that will be laid in a hallway in a few minutes. So we'll process that very, very quickly. Finally, let me say before I start, again, our strength and the abilities and the things that you've heard today are from our Creator. We have different names for Creator, but the message is all the same. The services and understandings and the spirits that are in our hearts have been put there by the same Creator. We would hope that we would be able to walk the same path together. It's the beginning of the new year. And I'm going to ask that we walk together. And it's Sister Kathy joins me, and although we don't see the snow here, there's a special person and leader that's asked to lead through the snow for the first time so that we can all follow. And I would like to have us join together to walk together in the breaking that first snow and make that first offering together. There's been thoughts about the rain, and the rain will stop the process. Let me explain something to you. The offering is into fire to transfer transfer our thoughts to tobacco and to move that tobacco into fire and to diverse that message to all things around us and to the Creator, so that those things can honor and help remember and unite us spiritually to all things around us. If rain should come, and it indeed may come, you need to understand that we are the freshwater people, and we've been here for 10,000 years. And what you would be offering to the fire and to the water would be an offering of the hope of forgiveness. So it doesn't really matter to me if your offering is to the fire and all things, all living things, including the mosquito, or if your offering goes to the freshwater people to say, forgive us, and can we walk the same path together once more, as Creator has asked that we have done in the past, and somehow we have lost that. And hopefully we can find that path of forgiveness. I must admit, I am not there at this point, but I do know that the greatest strength that I share with those that will listen to me for any period of time, I have found the greatest strength that I have is the ability to forgive. And that is very, very difficult to do. But if you can forgive, a burden is released, and you can start talking about tomorrow together. That's the reason why I'm here today. So thank you, and I hope that you will join us together. Darlene will be narrating and explaining what's taking place and so on and so forth for those that you are not out there, so that you miss nothing. So, thank you.
Yes, committee, please follow, and town selectmen, please follow. Tobacco is sacred medicine. You will be offered the opportunity to grab a pinch of tobacco and offer it to the fire. As you grab the tobacco, remember each pinch of tobacco carries memory, it carries grief, it carries hope. Together, they become our collective prayer. To the east, the earth turns towards light. We gather between what has been and what yet is to come. We stand on land that remembers suffering. We stand on land that asks for healing. East is truth and awakening. South, relationship and survival. As you offer, Peter will be acknowledging the north, the south. The south is relationship and survival. From the south comes life. Let us rebuild relationship broken by slavery and dispossession. Let survival become our teaching, and acknowledge the West, where the sun sets. Grief and ancestors remind us from the West, the setting sun. We name the ancestors whose bodies bore injustice. May grief become commitment. May memory become action. Finally, the north, as you enter the space of the fire and make your offering. The north is our wisdom and our responsibility. From the north comes endurance. It gives us strength, not only to feel, but to repair, not only to remember, but to transform. As we acknowledge the 4 directions and come together in this time and make our offering to the fire, may we learn together to heal and take action towards repair and reparations as the winds are at our back and the directions of all of our ancestors help us to find the footing on this journey to move ahead from the 7th generation that Peter and I represent, 7 generations from our ancestor Ishmael Coffey to today. And going forward, as you shared the image of Vivian, the youngest descendant of Jupiter and Ishmael, to go forth, not just this generation, our generation of Peter and myself, but the generation of my daughter that held Vivian for you to see. And Vivian, as she grows, will be the 3rd generation. It's not so far in the future to think of 7 generations. Our plan is to move ahead in the next 7 generations with actions towards reparation. And whatever that reparation may mean, to move forward with the church, move forward with the town, and to gather together in this very difficult and very painful journey that we share together as we acknowledge our shared history and the trauma that we have all experienced. And we heard the words of intergenerational. It is so wonderful to be with you here today in the flesh as descendants of Ishmael and Jupiter, and the genealogy, the history and study of all of our people, and the reason that we are here together, the pain and the future, which maybe isn't so easy, but that together we can learn to heal ourselves, to heal this land, to create a future for those that have suffered and continue to suffer the legacy of slavery that has created such great wealth for this land, for those that were able to enslave, and for those of us who are here today to bear witness to that enslavement and to work with you towards reparation. Thank you so much for joining in the ceremony. Looking forward to the unveiling.
It was perfect timing. It was really perfect timing. Ideal.
Some tears to
Clean.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Waters.
Yeah, Darlene and Peter, did you, be in there? I have no idea.
Yeah, let me swap
All
that.
right, I'm gonna, yeah, and you'll turn that one off. Hello, everyone. Ooh. All right, folks who are already in the parish hall, if you could gather near these double doors, we're about to unveil the installation. I'm so loud, can they not hear me?
Yeah, it's obviously too soon, right? It's only been, what, since 1880?
So most of you will have to stay in the parish hall and kind of gaze out because there's a lot of you. But if you gather here near the double doors, we'll unveil and dedicate and bless this installation, and then you can get some food. You each... Oh my gosh.
You have 12 petals. It reminded me of the shell of the turtle is 13. Thing that brings everything together and hope for the future.
We have our dedication and see how well this works. Are told in words. Together and partnering with those in our community. May the words on this memorial remind us every time we see them of our values and our commitment to a clean story.
looks like Boy Scout camp.